Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the CEN show, where the people's voice is valued and informative. The Community Education Network.com is a platform to aid the effort of self and collective improvement. In your investigative and spare time, visit the website. There's a forum, an events calendar, perspective writings, a podcast with previous shows, and recommendations. I would like to present to you my oldest female offspring, Janae Moore, who followed in her father's footsteps and now is an educator. She gave up her position as interviewee to become interviewer. She will interview me this evening, and I'm Rashaki Maskani. Ms. Janae, would you like to introduce yourself and tell the audience about yourself? And you could take over as host. How are you doing this evening?
I'm great. Um, as he let you all know, I am his oldest daughter, Rasaki Maskani. Um, I am a teacher. I live in New Orleans. I moved to New Orleans about 10 years ago, and I teach English. My dad teaches math, but I'm better with words. So I went for English. Basically, when my dad approached me about this, we were just talking. He was asking me, what would I like to speak about? And I was asking him because me and him have great conversations about life and about various topics. But I was asking him um, about culture gaps and how um, previous generations don't usually mesh well with current generations, and there's a lot of culture gaps. So basically, tonight I wanted to speak on how we can bridge that gap and how people that are from my generation accept the wisdom from previous generations, but also our fathers and grandmothers being open-minded to accept our culture and respect our culture because it has value and validity, in my opinion. So basically, I have a couple of questions that I want to ask to you, Rasaki, and anybody else that wants to answer the questions and jump in a conversation, that will be greatly appreciated as well. So my first question: you have been a teacher for over 2 decades. Can you compare and contrast the mindset of a student in the beginning of the 21st century with the mindset of a present student? Specifically speaking of the terms of morals, respect for adults, and how they regard education.
Oh, that's kind of loaded. That's a loaded question. Let's start with, I guess, when I first started teaching. When I first started teaching, I was kind of raw, and I was didn't have any formal training for teaching. So I had to kind of learn on the fly, and the type of students when I first started, they were I would say they were closer to the type of upbringing that I had,
Right.
and it was interesting because when I was learning my craft and teaching math, I also when I started, I had a few other subjects that I was teaching in conjunction to math,
Right.
and the students, what can I say about them? They weren't much different than the students today. They just were closer to my generational type thinking than to the current generational type thinking. So
Mhm.
let me just say this. they were, and this is the students that when I first started teaching, they were, I would say, more receptive to react in a more respectful manner than they would react right now, the students that would react, because we have a generation currently that uses a lot of profanity.
Yeah.
And those students back then, they were beginning to use profanity, whereas when I was in school, we didn't use profanity at all. And if we did, it wasn't around adults. So
Mm-hmm.
they were starting to use profanity around adults then, and they would, would be get put in place. And then now, these students now don't care who's around, and
Right.
they use profanity. And the reason why I mention profanity is because when I was coming up, we had a high regard for the adults in their, when they were around,
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't want to do things to disrupt their flow of things because they had corporal punishment.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I started teaching, there wasn't any corporal punishment, so the kids got away with more.
So is that something that you're assuming? Because, we don't know what goes on when our students go home. We don't know what disciplinary measures their parents are using.
Well,
So is that your assumption that it probably wasn't any corporal punishment?
well, no, I'm saying that the corporal punishment was public. We used to get
Oh,
SWATs when I was
yeah.
children, when I was a
Okay.
child, and then they eliminated that as I became a high school student. They started eliminating SWATs and corporal punishment.
Mm-hmm.
So it took some of the fear out of the students where they could do more than they usually would do when I started
Mm-hmm.
teaching. But I was from the old school, so I was kind of, tough with them. And nowadays you have to make students respect you versus back then it was more of a natural thing of respect
Yeah.
when it comes to certain
It was more automatic.
instances, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, kind of go back into your question so I could be a little bit more specific. Go back into it a little bit more. So,
Well, I was talking about comparing the mindset of students, like mainly concerning their morals, respect for adults. I think you touched upon that, and how they regard education. That's something that I was really interested about because I'm finding, because we also teach different age groups. You teach high school and I teach elementary, and I'm finding that even the elementary students are not really, they don't really take education seriously,
oh,
and
oh,
they don't really like they don't hold it for high like esteem as we used to, well, as I used to as a little girl. Like I would be
okay. So, I
like,
think that I think it may vary from uh, a group of like like one family to another because
definitely.
because I always talk about education culture at home, and
Mm-hmm.
I find that the students, if the parents are not, but first of all, not educated, or they're in a in a position where you have to work all the time and not too much parent when it comes to school.
Mm-hmm.
They're not parenting all the time when it comes to school, is expecting the teachers and the community and the administrators to be the person that enforces, the school culture,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not coming from the home. That's when you have an issue,
Right.
because I think it varies from family to family, and there's a high rate of students not valuing school rather than them valuing school. So I would say that that hasn't really changed.
That's been the
And
same.
yeah, that has
So
been the
you think
same.
that has more to do with your upbringing than your generation?
Yes, that's more of upbringing, and then also, environment.
Right.
We were talking last week about how certain students, come from situations that's not too good. Their
Yeah.
environments are not good, and where we had to step in as teachers and try to provide that type of incentive and influence on them to get them to basically reform them. And that happens a lot also. We have to be reformers, and it's kind of tough because you take a teacher and then you have their friends. You're competing against their friends. You're
Mhm.
competing against uh, TV, electronics, and all, social media. So it's a challenging thing. But I think that hasn't. There's not a big difference in that. But
Mhm.
let's stay on that question. And what are some other things you were hitting on so I can kind of hit them all?
I think that you said most of them. You dug deep into respect for adults. You already talked about that, and I put morals. So yeah.
Okay, well, see, yeah, the environment teaches us, like the popular culture,
Right.
the music, the entertainment. Those have big influence on school age children
Right.
and on in society period, because people gravitate to what's popular. And some of
Mhm.
those kids, well, a lot of those kids, they don't if they don't have a strong influence around them at the home, the TV, the social media, the electronics, they
Yeah.
have a strong influence on their behavior, and you could become immoral in your, being in an immoral society or environment. So that's really a strong influence on students, and they can lose their morals. And then
Right.
what's also socially accepted, we have a lot of things that are socially accepted that
And
are
we're
not
not.
healthy for us.
Yeah.
Okay,
And they weren't accepted.
I wanted uh
Um,
I wanted brother doctor to chime in if he wanted to, and sister JS Nelson. You guys wanted to kind of hit on that question too. I don't know if I did a good job with answering that, but that's just, we can
I,
go a little bit deeper in some of the other
I
questions.
think you did. I
I
mean, because it's a perspective question, so it's from your perspective
yeah, but
and
I
how
could
you think.
maybe I could do a little bit better on the next question, because you brought a lot to me, so it was kind of I was trying to think about all of what you said, so it's best that I hit on one thing at a time. But brother
Well, all of my
Mashinda,
questions are pretty.
yes, it's that question was kind of loaded. Brother Mashinda, maybe you could hit on the next question once I answer it. Brother Mashinda just came in. Okay, go ahead
Okay.
with the next
So the
question.
next question is, how influential culturally do you think you are for your students? And do you think it's a teacher's place to impact a student beyond their studies?
Um, Definitely. I think that you should have some impact on them beyond your subject matter. Most definitely,
Hmm.
especially if you are a person that looks at things in a constructive way. Now, I mean, you're going to have an influence on them behind the subject. I mean, beyond the subject anyway. You're going to have an influence on them. What was the first part of that question?
I want to know if you think you influence them culturally.
Well, we'll see that well, when you talk about culture, we don't have just a a culture that is specific. Our culture is so widespread, and it's a variety of different components, because you
Mhm.
have, and I think Neely Fuller put it best. He said your culture is basically what you're doing at the time you're doing it. And
Mm.
we have so many different types of cultures. We're in the United States. So we have foreign cultures that blend in with domestic cultures, and we have so many. So you could be all over the place with your culture. Now, to
Mhm.
be more specific, um, I have a culture of doing things that are most constructive, doing things that are more, well, how can I say this? I got to say this where you really understand it.
Mhm.
We we live in a society. This is really my perspective, that is really not conducive to healthy living, if you ask me. So when a student come to my class and they display some behaviors that is not, you know, helpful towards the class, I that's when I would have to stop the subject teaching to break down to the particular student that this is why we don't do this. This is, and
Mhm.
you got to kind of guide them in a way where they know that you're first of all, you came here for a specific reason. And
Mhm.
first and foremost, we're going to deal in that specificity. We're going to deal in that, which is learning math in my class. But if you come in here late because you ran to a fight, then that's when I have to break down why you shouldn't have came on time and not go to that fight.
Mhm.
So when it comes to a specific culture, it's basically it can become random at times. I have to I have to speak to them in a way where what they're doing must make sense. It must be
Mhm.
relevant to the the success of the subject matter and beyond. The school, make sure that we're doing things that's healthy for the school,
Mhm.
because even being coming late to class is not a good thing. So we have to break down specific characteristics for the kids to follow that is conducive to a healthy school and learning environment. So
And
it's,
when you
it's like
do that,
you have to become this teacher of all sorts in a
right?
sense at times. So I hope
And
that
when
kind of
you do
answers your
that,
question.
are they are they receptive to your advice? Or I know I find myself lecturing my students a lot on just life skills and soft skills because they lack that, and I want them to step into the real world just in a presentable way and not
Well,
so rough around the edges.
well, the fruit don't fall far from the tree. I do teach life skills. So yes, you have to do that, because if you going 100 miles an hour and the wall is right there, if you don't slow down and think about what you're doing, you're gonna crash. And that's what happens. These kids, they get they get in a certain mode, and they just can't stop. So you have to be there to be able to stop them
Mhm.
from from being a disaster. So that's a part of the job also. And that's a natural part of teaching, I think, to teach life skills. So
Yeah,
yes, I do that also.
for
In a
every
sense, that's
educator.
what I be doing. Yeah.
But what I was asking is, do you feel like students are receptive
Oh yes.
to your
Yeah.
guidance? Or
Well,
okay.
they are, because they listen and they keep coming
Mhm.
back. I would
And
say
do they change their behavior like gradually? I know it's not gonna be an immediate change, but do they like start to come in more respectful, maybe start coming on time and
yes. And another thing is whenever you are conveying some messages to them on how they should do things, you have to be the model also. You have to model the behavior. And then a lot of teachers don't understand this, and hopefully some teachers will hear this one day. You have to set the tone in the beginning of the
mm,
school year, your
oh yeah.
expectations and things that you want to occur in your class, and you have to let the students know that yes, I'm going to follow these expectations also, and you got to model that behavior. And when they see you modeling and keeping your word, yeah, they're more prone to listen to you, and they are receptive. Yes, my students are, because
Mhm.
I've been doing this a long time, and I always look to get better. So I do make adjustments too.
Right.
So
Do you think this is
you,
not a question that I originally planned to ask, but I do want to ask, do you think that you're a different teacher now than what you were 20 years ago as far as being impactful?
oh yeah, most definitely. Because when I first started teaching, I just was thrown into some classes. Matter of fact, I was a mobile teacher. I didn't even have a set classroom. They were just bouncing me around the school for the first semester. So yeah, I learned a lot, and I still have a lot to learn. And that's exactly why we're doing what we're doing now, to even learn more things
Mhm.
to do to be more effective with these students. Because just take a look at take a look at what's going on today. Just take a look. We have the Capitol building being stormed by
A
Trump
mess.
supporters. So, is that an example of how to be? So we have a lot in front of us. Now I wanted
Mhm.
JS, did you want to add to any of this so far? Maybe not. Oh, go
No,
ahead.
I'm good right now. I'm just here for wisdom.
Okay, well, you have wisdom too. I know that. And
Okay.
brother doctor,
Yeah, what's up?
do you want to extend some questions, or do you want to make a comment?
I'm just keep on going. Keep on going, man. Sounding good.
Okay, brother Mashenda.
Yeah, I can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, how y'all doing? Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. It's your experiences uh are very credible. Great experiences that I can attest to myself. And I think you hit it hard on the nail. In terms of one thing, going back on that question, she was asking about culture, and one thing I can just add to that is, um, what you had said, Rasaki. Yeah, there are multiple cultures. There are subcultures that people bring to the table, and my whole goal with that, in my teaching experiences, is to make sure that each student respect each other's cultures and subcultures. And so I try to concentrate on that, focus on the respect of that, because everybody has a story. Everybody brings something good to the table, and then sometimes not so good. And as a instructor, teacher, mentor, tutor, what have you, my goal is to kind of bring that all together and make some positive changes. So identifying some of the shortcomings, and then also uplifting the positive things that I see, and try to
Right.
help enhance growth. Right there. So, but the bottom line is, when it comes to culture, just learning to respect each other's culture. Because like you say, I agree with what you said about like the little short definition that you gave. It's kind of like it's just things that you do, experiences and how you conduct yourself, based on a teaching that was passed down to you or
Right.
something you just experienced in life. So it's a real time, uh, can be sometime a complex situation, but I enjoy the challenge of trying to resolve and trying to uplift, but very good. Nice, good, great questions and, great feedback, and I appreciate being here.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, host.
That was great input.
Thank you.
My next question is another lengthy one, and I tried to word it as clearly as possible, but if it's unclear, just let me know what's unclear about this question and I'll try to make it plain. So, usually within the African American culture, the generation which precedes the current will criticize the latter, which ironically, the adults in whom they've raised. What could be a reason or some factors that causes a generation to become different culturally?
Well, I think I know what you're talking about. And I think there's an understanding. Well, well, when you ask that question, I think that people need to first understand the situation that's at hand. Now, when you talk about a parent and an offspring, okay, first of all, it took me some years to figure out some things. From I'm my me being an offspring, and then I have parents, and so what I had to figure out is why are they telling me this? And see, when parents are conveying messages, sometimes it's not clear. And then if you don't have the toolkit to ask questions for clarity, that's when a division come in. So it took me years. I'll give you a clear example of what I'm saying. I'm a avid listener to some pretty loud music at times. And I
Mhm.
love reggae. And I would play the music loud, and my father would say all the time when he hear me, he said, "Listen, everybody don't want to hear your music, and you know it sound good to me." And I never understood what he was saying until I got older and thought about what he was saying.
Mhm.
You know, the music sounds good to me, but that don't mean it sounds good to anybody else that could hear it
Mhm.
because it's so loud. And then also, if he didn't take the time out to explain that thoroughly. And then I've said another thing is when your music is that loud and other people can hear it, I learned that was being inconsiderate. I was being inconsiderate of other people around me because everybody also always center themselves, and then they expect everybody to make the adjustment around them. But we should have been kind of taught the word consideration and explained. And so this is how, by me being an educator, I break things down to the lowest common denominator so
Mhm.
people can understand. So I think that when you speak of between parent and offspring,
Mhm.
there's a disconnect with the communication, which causes, things to be uneasy at times. And
Mhm.
then also the search for understanding. I had to get older to see that I needed to search for understanding to understand my parents. If you understand your parents and the things that they've been through in the era they grew up in, then you could say, oh, okay, I get it. And then you could kind of like that you have the understanding where you don't really condemn them as you would when you didn't understand. So there
Right.
becomes condemnation at times because you don't understand what your parents is trying to convey. So the communication, there's you spoke about a gap. At times there's a communication gap and a lack of understanding. So does that kind of help, or do I need to go?
Yeah, but you spoke, I mean, you gave a really nice, lighthearted example with the music, but I was thinking more in terms of um just heavier, like let's go back to what you said about profanity and how that's so widely used in just everyday conversation anywhere. Like, if I know a lot of parents to say, I don't know how they start talking like that. I never spoke like that when I was young. But it will be a parent talking about their child. Let's take my mom for example. My mom rarely uses profanity, but that's just how me and my friends talk loosely. We use a lot of profanity and it's all for jest. And so I'm trying to think about like does how can you be raised by your parent, or how can you raise a child and then they turn out to be or to gain habits that are just very unlike what you raised them to be.
Okay, well, I know that in certain situations, um, stu- uh, people are influenced heavily by the people they hang around. And
Okay.
then you have socially accepted things that are portrayed through popular culture and media and all of that. And then if things become socially accepted without the practice of respecting the parent the way the parent should be respected.
Mhm.
And then also you have parents that accept the socially acceptable misnomers that people portray, like profanity. And then
Mhm.
there's mixed messaging. You can go around this parent and use profanity, but then you can't go around this other parent and use profanity because there's a division in thought process. Okay, my
Mhm.
mama let me do this, but no, my daddy don't want to let me do that. There's also mixed messages being sent. Like I said, I think
So
the
you think it
most
has to do with parents being on the same page as well?
okay that and I think the social acceptance of the use of profanity through through especially the music start changing. So popular
Music,
culture
yes.
plays a very heavy weighing on how things are shaped. And then,
Okay.
people just instead of fighting it, they say, oh, forget it. I'm just tired of fighting this. And so this
Right.
is how things shift.
Mhm.
And but see, like I said earlier, the understanding of of certain things, like I understand my parents, I'm fortunate to have my parents are still living.
Mhm.
They're in their mid to late 80s now, and they're still around, and that's a fortunate thing. That's a blessing for me, and even my friends that know them. So when we were raised, they raised me a certain way, and I was raised not to use profanity in front of them. But also, I came through a Black Studies program that also taught high respect for your your predecessors, your parents.
Yeah.
And so with me learning that, I still hold on. That kind of reinforced some values that I was raised with. So it's difficult for me if I use profanity in front of my parents now. I say, excuse me. I
Mhm.
didn't. I got to kind of let them know that look, I got this for you. This
Mhm.
respect, and I shouldn't be talking this way. But like I said, it comes with an understanding. Then habits. People develop habits that are terrible, and they just hang on to them without thought. So there's different factors for these things.
Mhm.
So did that help with that
Yeah.
question?
It
Okay.
did, because you said that education could play a role in it too, because you went on to, and I'm assuming that you had the Black Studies class in college.
Class is, I majored in Black Studies, and
Okay.
they have high regard for ancestors and
Yeah.
and parents and all of that. So it's a high, a honoring thing. We honor it for what I've from when I've been learning and continue to learn. You give honor to those who come before you, because if not for them, wouldn't be you. You know what I'm saying? So it's something to be almost praised, but you don't praise incorrect behavior though. You learn from it. If my parents did something that I think was incorrect, I learn from it. I don't condemn. You know, I learn from it so I won't repeat the incorrect behavior from my viewpoint.
Okay.
Yeah. So now
So
we
you
want
wouldn't,
uh,
oh, I'm sorry.
no, go
I
ahead, go ahead.
just was thinking about something you just said,
Go
because
ahead.
you said that you won't condemn. You would not, you wouldn't tell your parent, I think that how you reacted to this, or how you disciplined me in this way was um well, not inappropriate. I know you wouldn't say that to your parent,
Well,
but would you
well,
tell them like you feel like it's kind of harsh?
what you do is, and I'm an avid listener of Neely Fuller. I'm gonna keep saying it. You ask, and you make a comment about what they did, and if they
Oh.
say no, you say okay, and you leave it alone.
Hmm.
It's just I'm a person that kind of, I think, starting to adjust real well, and plus I'm 50 something, so I'm really kind of seasoned now,
So you
somewhat.
think that you're becoming more flexible in your mind?
Well,
in your
I'm flexible if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, I'm not going to be flexible. There's a line that has to be drawn in the sand, and a lot of
Mhm.
people want to be accepting of a lot of things that don't make any sense. And now I draw the line in the sand. That's me. I'm drawing the line. It's like, okay, you may think that, but I disagree with that.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
but when I talk to my parents now, I do a lot of listening, and then and then I make some comments, but I do my best to listen.
What about if you're talking to your children and they kind of give you some pushback about some advice that you're giving them?
Well, we'll
How do you
see.
handle that?
Well, see, I got a bird's nest mentality. All of my children, except two, are really grown. And once you flew away from that bird's nest, if you don't understand and if you're not looking for understanding, you know, I don't know if this is code or not. You flew from the nest, and you have to look for understanding. And if you also, in my situation, I have 6 children, 2 step ones, and they don't agree. Everyone don't agree with the way I do things at times, but I'm the daddy. And if you can't look for understanding and you can't see what I'm doing and what I have been doing, I think it's sort of like you're lost. But I'm there for my children as best I can be, but they grown. I got the youngest one to be 17 this year, so
Mhm.
I'm like, it's daddy time. You guys need some help, let me know.
Yeah, but I think that ongoing relationship with your parents when you become an adult is going to help bridge that culture gap too, staying close to your
Yeah,
parents
yeah, like
despite age.
so I'm telling you, I'm a child right now because I have parents around. As far as I still have parents around. Like I said
Mhm.
before, you look for understanding, and you could tap into the wisdom if you think they have some. You can ask questions, and then if they like you know how I am. I'm gonna say something every now and again. I think you should listen, but you still gonna do what you want to do because That's what grown folks do. They make a decision and they choose it. Now,
Right.
if you're looking for understanding and you saying a gap, if you want a gap to be bridged, you're gonna have to fill that gap.
Well, but it has to be compromised. It has to be on both sides.
Well, I tell you what, I came before.
Hmm.
So you if you want to get this this jewel of a person and want it in your life, like I said, I got a bird's nest mentality. When you fly away, you fly away. Now, if you want to fly back, you got to fly back with some understanding.
Okay.
And you know, I'm into my grandchildren as much as I can be. I want to establish a relationship with them
Hmm.
because they are children. The adults are the adults. If they ain't got it by now and they don't want to get it, they gonna stay in their lane.
Hmm.
It depends on, I don't see no gaps. The gap is what you want to do.
I
I
think it's
tell you
definitely
what, this is an
um
example. I call my parents. They don't call
mhm.
me. Okay. And I check on them. They really don't check on me. Now they'll call me if they need something, in which, my parents, they have a lot of people around them. So, I tend to them. They don't tend to me. I'm in the position now where I should be tending to them, in my opinion. But that's
Okay.
me. That's me.
So
Okay.
you think it's more of a child's job to reach out to their parents for wisdom rather than
Well,
you
when
kind of trying to impose it on
no,
them.
that's just it. When you do impose, they don't want to hear it. So, now Neely Fuller has a good strategy for bringing people to reality is through questions and answers. Now, if you ask some questions, maybe the person will, the child, if I ask questions of you and you
Hmm.
answering them, I think you'll see where I'm coming from. And if you notice lately, I've been asking more questions and more telling. I say, well,
Well,
would you
do you
want your
think
child?
that by them answering, you can see where they're coming from as well?
Yeah, I can
It
see where
just
they're
goes
coming
both
from,
ways.
but there are for certains, and I think you can agree with that. There are for certains, and if I'm asking you a question, I'm gonna be for certain, that I have an idea I want to convey.
So you
So
ask
let
rhetorical questions.
I will if I need to, if I feel the need to. So now let's not let Miss Rashaki Maskani hog this up. Brother Doctor, J.S. Nelson, and Brother Mashinda.
Yeah, go ahead, man. Yeah, you
Yeah,
handled
you.
it perfectly, man. I mean, good answers, man. I have nothing to add. I agree with everything you said.
Okay. So Brother Doctor is the same age as me, and he has a grown child. So
I don't like the way you said fly when they fly from the nest they're gone. I
oh,
think
that is strictly a daddy thing, because a
I
lot
don't
of
think
lot of
that
people
that's
don't
right.
don't have that bird's nest mentality. I do. It's just it is what it is, and I
Because you can still teach your children beyond the years. I mean, you're definitely more influential in their life when they're younger, but I feel like especially my relationship with my mom is really good because um I guess now that I'm a parent, I have more in common with her and more things to talk about, more things to questions to ask. And she doesn't agree with everything. It's same as you, don't agree with everything that I do and say, but um I just think that it's really good to try to keep those close-knit relationships with your parents because you do want to soak up that wisdom, but I think that parents should also consider that their child is a product of a new culture. Just like you all said, that culture is kind of all encompassing and it's a lot to that you intake just from the time that you live in and how you live and the things you experience. I think that a lot of parents need to consider that, so that, like you said, maybe it would be better if they are not so condemning and ask questions rather than just say, well, you shouldn't be doing this.
Well,
Because
if you trying to jump off a bridge, I gotta say
I'm
that
not
you shouldn't
talking
be
about
doing
extremes like that, but
that.
this conversation is centered all around culture, because I think that whereas I have a great relationship with both of my parents, that's not the case for a lot of my peers. And I'm trying to figure out why and how we can stop that cycle, because I want the generation that's upcoming, to definitely consider us for advice, their parents and grandparents for advice. And I don't want it to be such a disconnect between,
Well,
I mean, of course, it's going to be a somewhat of a gap because the times are different and they're experiencing different things. But I just want to make sure that we could try to do better about bridging the gap and not having it be so wide,
well,
because I feel like it's a very wide gap.
this is why I'm saying that I think that we people are so turned out behind society, they don't know really what's important and what's not. And a lot of things that are unhealthy and insignificant could be paid attention to too much. And therefore you lose your way when you don't know what's really important and what's not really important. You know,
Hmm.
things got to be, you have to to have certain values and interests. You got to have interest in learning, interest in
Right.
being better than what you are, and not play victim. I know people play victims. You know, you can't be a victim all the time. You got to take charge of your life. So this platform here is developed for all of that. And also
Okay.
you can send this out to your peers
Yeah.
so they can evaluate what we're saying and
Hmm.
start thinking about what's really important. I think a lot of people don't know what's really important because they live a hapless life at times. So, you know, we got to focus on. And then I did say this. I said, when you fly back to the nest, you fly back with understanding.
Hmm.
So I said a bird's nest mentality, but when you want to visit the old nest, visit with understanding and seeking of knowledge. And you know, it becomes about what you really want to do as an individual. You know,
This is
I,
not. I keep coming up as you say different things. I keep different questions keep popping up in my head.
that's
So this is
fine.
the
But
last one I'm gonna ask before I go to the real one, the real
okay, so
question.
listen, wait a
Okay.
second.
Okay.
Let's see if
Mm.
Brother Machinda want to chime in on some of this on this last question.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'll be brief. Um, yeah, again, I got a, well, it's not my saying, but I've heard it a lot through my life. Sometimes, there's not a right or wrong. It's not about a right or wrong on how you do it, because everybody has their philosophy, you know, and I think your strategy is what works for you and your family and your students and people around you. You only can play the hand that you're dealt, you know, you only can deliver information that you know. So, uh, sometimes uh, uh, listening to your listening to the moderator, uh, basically, I'm in agreement. I understand where she's coming from, in terms of, um, there's next level uh, information per se that can be imparted. And I think that depending on, you go to, in your case, Rasaki, when you go to work, you go to school every day. That's your job. You deal with children's every day. So you children and students every day. So you have a strategy to communicate and deal with them, and they're not your children at home per se, but you still have a bond with them and a desire to try to communicate with them so they can learn and upgrade their their lifestyle and their understanding and the subject matter as well. But you know, I think it all falls on communication. And there and to this day, I always believe that there's always another level. There's always the next level, and how we do things. Now, we have to reevaluate ourselves, in other words, the level of patience that we have. um, it's just, because I always use that it's real time, and we do things within our own time frame, our own level of patience, and so forth. So we have our own inner struggles that we got to make sure that we have ourselves together, let alone try to help somebody else and try to make their life better by imparting great knowledge and information. So again, great feedback, Rasaki, and because it's not a bad feedback, it's a great feedback because that works for you, and based on your experience and how you see it. But what I understand what she's saying is that, you know um, to to and I'm not saying this, I'm being hypothetical, because again, I think this is a great conversation and it's not a wrong answer in this. It's great feedback. But it's kind of like, hey, uh, if someone leaves the nest, well, take, when your kids are growing up per se, when they leave home, they're going out into the world. They spend more time with their peers and other students and teachers and other folks, and they get more interaction with them in a lot of ways, throughout the day. And then they come home, they do their homework, they got to eat, they got to do this, they got to do this. And what we're doing is constantly making sure that they're regimented and making sure that they, get disciplined and take care of their business, because we want our children to really listen and become something in life, and be great, become a taxpayer or a business owner or whatever. You want them to grow up and to be a responsible individual. So I think the efforts are great, and any effort that we do. But again, I just want to say that, there is other levels. But again, I'll never try to, of course, Rasaki, maybe, we can get into a debate like we have in the past, or we may talk about certain things to, bounce it off and try to say, oh, okay, that might work, or whatever. Or you might say, nah, I ain't got time for that. I just, I did the best I can or whatever. But again, life is real time. But at the same time, um, communication is whether they're growing up in the household or when they leave. And like me, uh, I'm constantly, I call my son, hey, like, he'll get off work, he'll stop in. I usually see him, but it's a few hours past. I'm like, hey, what you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm over. He's at his girlfriend's house, but I'm just checking in with him. I'm not babying him. I'm not. He's a grown. He's grown. But it's at the same time, and I tell him, I said, hey, when your mother and I, when we ask you, uh, hey, like what you've been doing or where you've been or something like that, we're not doing it to be intrusive, because we live in this world we living in, so we just do things out of love and concern. That's why they call us parents. And so that's why I agree with you, Rasaki, on that end. It's like, no matter what, you know, we got to continue to, and sometimes you got to show tough love. Sometimes people do play victim or go into these different modes, but it's how creative we can be in our communication to try to offset some of that. So but anyway, let me back out. You guys keep talking.
So,
No, I like how he said that he calls his son to check up on him, because that's very different than your perspective, where you said you feel like you should call and check on your parents. And
yeah,
he's
so
saying that he calls and Not saying that either one,
And
like
he
one
does
is
that
better
too,
than the
by the
other,
way.
but
He checks on me because after he does the same thing. He does the same thing with me, but it's because I've done it enough with him where every now and then he'll check on me. He's like, "What you
and
up to?" What?
yeah,
Yeah, excuse me. Go
just
ahead
like
though.
that Rashaki, just like you were saying, you model for your students' expectations. So I think that what Mashinda is saying is that he's modeled it so much he calls his son and checks on his son probably got it in his head like, well, maybe I should start calling my dad a little bit more and checking in with him because he does that for me.
Well, um, I'm not I'm not taking away from anything that either one of you have said. I'm pretty sure I have modeled certain things. And one of the models is listen carefully. I check on my parents. That's a model. I'm not expecting them to check on me, especially with the spectrum of things that they have going on in their life. So I make it my business to check on them. That's the model I'm giving right now. Okay, so let's move on.
But see, but in that situation, not that they don't love you or anything like that, but maybe they're not the type to call you and check on you. You know what I mean? It's just that's the dynamics of that relationship. It's no love loss. It's a great relationship, but hey, and I get it. That's why I support that. I grew up around that. I understand what you're talking about. I know it probably better than you or just as good as you. So at the end of the day, I get that, but you know um that wasn't developed, probably. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm sure they were concerned about you when you were young or whatever, but still, their breeding, their upbringing and all that, basically, um that's the way they did it, and they did the best that they could, and it was not a right or wrong, and they did a great thing, and look how you turned out. So at the same time, I get it. So if that formula works and you learn by that, hey, is keep doing it. Do what you got to do. But I always say that. I mean, so again, it's not a right or wrong. So I'm backing out.
Okay, so now let me you guys know I listen to Neely Fuller all the time, weekly, on a weekly basis. He has a term called VGQ, Victims Guaranteed Qualification. Since we're in a system of white supremacy racism, we are victims. So to avoid any type of disagreement, we say that he said what he said. And then, so if you ask me, okay, what do you think about what he said? You just say he said what he said. So that's
Well,
what I
yeah,
would say. I would say Brother Mashinda said what he said, and Sister Janae said what she said. Okay, let's move on to the next one.
we gonna. I do want to move on to the next one, but to respond to what you just said,
Uh,
I think that that's a big part of bridging the culture gap too, though, is being open minded and
oh yeah, yeah,
considering
but
that,
see, another thing though, you have to know when to hit it and quit it. I think that's Brother Mashinda is the Grand Wizard
Mhm.
of the Super Five right now, and he hit it right on the nose. He said you can go next level. He said what he said, and I also agree with that. So let's move on. Next,
Okay. So, but I had another question that I thought of when you were talking the last time,
go ahead.
because um with the mental health stuff being so popular right now, and a lot of influential African Americans within pop are really pushing that right now. Would you ever consider doing family counseling, like going to see a therapist with your family,
I
or is that
have
something
did
that
that.
you're like,
I have did
oh,
that.
okay,
I have did that before, and I usually do it in support of. I'm a pretty confident person, And, you know, I figured out some things that people can do to help themselves when they're going through mental crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And I like I do math, so I simplify things. This right here is family counseling. If you want to say, I'm saying what we're doing
Mm-hmm.
is being able to express ourselves and get some ideology out. And then you can also, if you agree with something, you can say you agree with it. And then if you don't agree, you don't have to say anything. But it could be a later conversation moving forward. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we have I have confidence in most of the people that I deal with that we are reasonable people and we can sit and reason. And then one thing about it is when you ask questions, you can get clarity of the understanding. And then if there's an issue, it can be resolved through constant communication and talking and talking. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, you could do that. I usually do stuff like that in support of
Yeah.
because I've learned how to give and take. Sometimes you just got to give, and then sometimes you just got to take. And then, you know, later on, after, like Brother Machinda mentioned, self evaluation, and
Right.
the the textbook, or not even really a text, well, you could call it a textbook, a book that I'm going to come out with. I'm going to talk extensively about. I have two concepts when it comes to self evaluation, and I'm gonna break it down
Mm-hmm.
to the fullest. So I want that to be something that people get, and you guys see how I bring these two concepts together, and so there the value self evaluation is something that occurs on a constant basis. It's just, are you aware of it, and then are you learning from it? So I get deeper into that later. Okay.
All right. So I have two more questions. So this one is about social media and how that affects um the generational gaps. So social media has become very influential within this generation. Most young people are comfortable expressing themselves in various ways by the means of social media. Does this widen or bridge the gap between generations? Why or why not?
Well, it comes down to understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you are participating on social media, I think a lot of people have to look at the why. Why are you on social media, and for what reason? Now, some people tend to go on there and display their life. Well, that's more so of attention thing. If you're trying to get attention, you're going to get it, and the whole world could be accessible to it, like we're doing now. The whole world could be accessible to this. They can access it.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your ultimate end game for participation? I think people have to look at that. And when it comes to bridging a gap, you have people that are in different age groups that don't even know how to use social media. And then when they learn how to do it, they turn into juveniles at times because they
Mm-hmm.
start doing all kind of things that I think are unhealthy. And I get showed posts on a consistent basis with people trying to display their bodies. They it's like attention getting. It's like there's a
But
lacking of
rather than
attention.
like thinking about it as them trying to get attention, you don't feel like it's self-expression?
Yeah,
Because that's what
you
I think
express
that a
what
lot of people,
well see.
that's the pushback that a lot of young people give to the older generation when they say, "Oh, you doing too much on social media." And like, I'm expressing myself.
Well, yeah, you can. There's a lot of self-expression. I'm expressing myself through the media platform that I'm doing this on and through the website. But the expression, what is the ultimate goal? The goal of my expression is to better me and better us as far as being healthy mentally, physically, spiritually. These are things to uplift. Now, a lot of people go on there and do things that are derogatory. What is the aim? You know, that I think that that becomes subjective, you know, because you have a lot of older people that's on social media. So I think it's basically it becomes individualized. It's like what are you doing things for? A lot of people, there's always a reason for doing things. And I think when people evaluate the why, then you know they could be, I guess, more comfortable with what they're doing. Or you know what other people think about what you're doing is really not the most important thing. It's what you think about what you're doing. And
Right.
then also, what is your influence? You know, I always look at, you know, if I'm doing something, what is the influence on it of it? Is it influencing people to be better or to do better, or is it condemning, or is it, you know, that could be wide open right there. Social media could be it's a tool. It's a
Right.
yeah, it's a tool that can be used. You know, it's
So you think that it can help bridge the gap rather than widen it?
of course anything that people can access. Yeah, and then you talk about gaps. I think that uh well, you can define gaps a little bit. So I think it could be more
Well,
specific.
I guess what I'm saying is like a disconnect. Do you think that it's gonna help with the disconnect of
So you
previous generations
so
with the current generation?
so you saying there is a disconnect.
Oh, I think there definitely is a disconnect.
Give me an example, please.
But it's not with every single parent like that. Like I think that I have a great respect for both of my parents and I have great relationships with them. But I definitely think that when it comes to social media, my mom is like, well, I just don't want to deal with that foolishness at all. And the same with you. I think that it's like, I don't know if you all don't
Well,
understand it or just don't like it.
well, the
But
the
then,
thing is, you know, from my like Brother Mashinda was saying earlier, basically we come from our own perspectives and perceptions, how we perceive things and how we put out things, how we perceive things and how we put out. We're coming from our own understanding most of the time. And when you look to understand other people's point of view, this is why you ask them questions. You ask them questions, you're trying to get this information from other perspectives, other people's points of view.
hmm
When it comes down to it, if I'm on social media and I see something that I think that is counterproductive, that's not wholesome, that's not, you know, significant, uplifting, and I think that it's the, you know, damaging or derogatory, I'm not going to be so keenly towards it, you know, to really want to be in that space. So
hmm
I tend to remove myself from a space that is not appealing to me, and I think that is kind of detrimental to the person and their environment. And
Well,
in my case, if I'm talking to my children and I'm telling them like, wait, hold up, what's going on? You
hmm
know, why are you doing this? And do you think that's good for this? Do you think I'm just opening up their thought process for them to think about what they're doing? Now, they're going to choose to do what they're going to do because they're grown. My children are grown, except two of them, like I said. And one of them thinks she's grown just because she's 19. So, you know,
I think that's grown.
well, yeah, when you're able to take care of yourself, you
Well,
know,
yeah, I agree with that.
able to
When
take
you're
care of
able to do
yourself,
yourself.
and it all comes down to is your actions going to produce a constructive result? And I agree with Neely Fuller on that. If it's constructive, we should be doing it. If it's not, we shouldn't be doing it. And that comes with training and understanding and all of that. You have to seek understanding. Like, okay, why is this man saying this?
Mm-hmm.
Does it make any sense about what he's saying? So it's that's what it comes
Well,
down
I
to.
agree with everything that you're saying, but I don't agree with the part where you say you'll remove yourself,
Well,
because
I'll
there's
remove
also
myself.
a lot of knowledge that you could probably impose on social media.
I'm
Like
on it
you
right
have this
now.
platform, you have this platform. No, I'm talking about various. I mean, this is one way. This is a podcast, but you have um other platforms where you can promote this the CEN website. So I just feel like removing yourself completely because you don't agree with some of the things that you see. I don't agree with a lot of the things I see on social media, but I still stay on because I enjoy connecting with people, especially because I live away from my hometown too. It's a way for me to connect with those that are within my hometown, but also because I feel like I want to encourage my peers and anybody who is willing to take a look at whatever I have to post. I just think that I don't think removing yourself is the solution.
Okay, well,
I didn't agree with
I
that
don't
part.
I don't think I don't see it being a problem with me not going on like a Facebook and befriending my children or anybody else. I'm not a
Mhm.
Facebook person, but this particular platform is on social media. Uh, Matter of fact, J.S. Nelson is my media person.
Mhm.
So this is out there on those platforms,
Mhm.
and that's fine. It's just we all this is a learning platform, so hopefully we all are learning something at this moment, and I think we are.
Yeah.
So, okay, you want to go to the next question?
This the last question. What do you
Okay.
think is the best form? Well, you kind of answer because you kind of answered this, but what do you think is the best form for wisdom to be passed down from generation to generation within the African American community?
Um, um, the best form of
Mhm.
exchange.
Yeah, I'm guessing you would say like in this way with your podcast and your website.
Well, well, from generation to generation, is it well, yeah, this is another avenue
Mm-hmm.
for information to be put out because we have guests that range. We're going to have guests that range from basically children to adults. We're going to be tapping the brains of children too. I haven't got my child guest yet, but I think I have one lined up so far,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully I can get that child on so we could kind of see where what they how they perceive and how and what their perspectives are of their environment. But yes, this is one way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
With I think I have a it's I would say I guess it's a goal or a way of living. And Brother Mashinda says next level. I say self improvement, collective improvement, all the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you are looking to be better than what you are, this is what I ascribe to. Then you're going to seek knowledge as far as other people in as far as one generation to another generation.
Mm-hmm.
It's I think the process is going to have to be organic too, in a sense. With like I know Brother Mashinda, he talks to a lot of people, and he communicate with all. He's more wide spectrum than I am. I'm a little, not as much, a communicator as him, but being around him, I've learned to reach out to a lot of different people, but he reaches out to a lot of people. So just by creating an environment of education, like this platform is Each One Teach One,
Yeah.
things are going to be organically. We have brother doctor on here. He's our antagonistic person, and our, the he keeps us kind of balanced. He kind of points out some things that we say that are not good at times, and then he asks us, like, is this is going to change? And we say, yes, brother doctor, it is. And so we just have it'll happen organically through people, through reform, because I've been reforming from the personality that I was taught through my environment, my upbringing and my environment. I was taught hedonistic ways, and I'm not saying that specifically how I got it was through my environment that was derived from an unjust system that Africans were put through slavery and mental degradation. And as we see now, all the things, I give you an example. These white folks storm the Capitol building. Nothing really happens to them too much, But
Right.
if you take us, we go storm it, we might get blown up or something. So the disparities in the way, the disparities that exist in society and the way we were brought up, and we took on the personality of our unjust society. I had to look at why I was doing all of the negative things I was doing, and had to reform. So I use myself as an example. While I'm reforming and changing my ideology of how to be a significant, constructive person, other people can follow that lead. So this is a sense of, if I could do it, you could do it. I've been where you've been. Some people, you know, we all in this craziness. So let's change. I didn't change some of my ways that was very detrimental, and I see how it influences my environment now positively. So if I can make these changes, people coming under me can make these changes. So it's an organic type thing, you
Yeah.
know. And once we keep doing what we're doing, like, hopefully you'll go off to your crowd and share things that we talk about, and then they can kind of evaluate it and take what they could take from it and start thinking about the things that they really do. Because and then you get into that conscious self-evaluation. I don't want to tell you that, but that's one of them. Then you can start doing some things and making some changes that's going to contribute positivity to your life versus negativity.
Okay. I agree with that.
Okay, so
Well,
is that the last question?
that was my last question.
So
I
I'm a, I'm
conversation.
a, I'm gonna give J.S. Nelson a shot at saying something or making a comment. Do you want to do any of that?
What do you want me to make a comment on?
Anything that you want to take a comment on that we were talking about? I mean, if you want, you don't have to.
Yeah, I don't really have a comment. I was just enjoying the information and the ideas, and you guys did a lot of talk about adults, parents and their adult kids. So I just think some people don't have that. You guys are lucky to have a good relationship, because a lot of people, they had trouble when they're coming up with their parents, so they
Yeah.
don't have that. So, and then my kids are still kids at home, so I don't know, they haven't got out of the nest yet.
Okay. Yeah, we all had some interesting upbringing. You
Mhm.
know, we were
Yeah.
we were nomads in the street. If you talk to Brother Machinda and then Brother Doctor, we used to be in the streets too doing certain things. So we used to do some interesting things, but you know, you you get better if you focus on getting better. I
Yeah.
just know I was a terror at one time for doing things that didn't make any sense. But I changed from those ways, and I could have stayed
Right.
on the same road, but I switched lanes.
Mhm.
Okay, brother doctor.
Yes, sir.
So you want to add or what?
It sounding great, man. I'd just like to say it's nice to see Janae. Last time I seen her, I think she was what 2 or 3 years old.
Oh
So
Lord,
nice to
you
see
haven't
her.
seen her since then.
I haven't seen her since then, man. With one,
That's
2, 3
nice.
years old, something like that. It's been a long, long time, man.
Yeah.
No, good answers, man. It's nice to listen to. It's nice parent teaching. That's nice, man. This is nice to hear your answers, man.
Okay, I did what I could do, brother doctor. Brother Machinda, you wanna send us home?
I just, I just want to say a beautiful dialogue tonight. Um, uh, daughter, father exchange. This is part of the next level that I'm talking about. Because when I just chiming in, giving my 2 cents. That type of thing, in agreement with most things that's being said. And not hating on any other comments because, like I say, it's relative to your own understanding. I think the goal is to continue to build on your understanding, keep an open mind, and I think that you got to keep love in the equation. Very valuable, to keep love in the equation. And it's nothing wrong with tough love and bird's nest and flying out and all that. And not it really not being comical, just being, those are strategies. And
Mhm.
I think they work for the individuals that you're playing the hand that you're dealt, like I said earlier. So again, I appreciate this beautiful exchange, and I don't see anything but growth coming out of this because when you have an open mind to dialogue, this is not something. I mean, we can have fun and laugh and talk and tell a few jokes from time to time, but this is serious business. This
Right.
this dialogue here, this podcast is not for fun and games. It's for real talk, and I appreciate the level of it. I think everybody on here is very intelligent, but we keeping it simple. And you mentioned Mr. Neely Fuller. It's kind of like his podcast where he's very logical. And I listened to Neely back, like say back in the late '80s, and for a while I used to listen to Neely and Dr. Welsing, but I used to say, wow, he's just so simple. But then as I grow through life, I say, you know what? He's just making good common sense. It's just
Yeah.
common sense. And I think to convey common sense and keeping love in the equation, everybody will be all right. You guys have a good evening. Thank you for having me over.
Okay, well hold up. We're not finished with you.
Oh.
Oh,
Okay, so now
Hey, I
I
have one
think
quick question. One quick question.
okay, go ahead, doctor.
Uh, I'd like to ask Janae, is there anything that you have learned now or knowledgeable about now that you wish your dad could have told you growing up?
I told you
And I
something
wish
else.
I think for not only for my dad, but also for my mom too. I think both of them should have had more conscious talks about relationships with the opposite sex and with dating and how to look for good characteristics in a husband. And even I was crazy. I got married at 20, and and it resulted in divorce. But I think that if they would have took the time to really expound on, even knowing that you grow much more as an adult in your mindset. So thinking about uh those serious relationships while you're still so young and trying to find yourself not really that wise. I just wish they would have really talked to me more about those type of situations, so I could have been more prepared.
I would like to
Okay.
chime in on that. You
Oh
know,
God.
Brother Mashinda said that you play the cards you are dealt, and I would say that when from the the two daughters that are older to the two daughters that are younger, I had a mindset where I was lacking. That's why things occurred the way they did. So, I'm pretty sure it would have benefited my daughters, the older daughters, if I did convey messages to them about relationships. Well, it took me years to get myself together when
Right.
it came to relationships. So, you only could play the cards that you dealt. I was limited in my scope. So,
Hmm.
but with better understanding moving forward and all of that, I think some of the wrongs can be, changed into rights. You
Hmm.
can't change what happened, but
Right.
in your next relationship, you learn from the previous relationship. And that's
Hmm.
what I did. I didn't have a few relationships before I settled into my 20 over 20 plus relationship I'm in now. So it's,
Hmm.
like I said, I had to, when you reprogram it, you got to deprogram. So I had to deprogram and reprogram just to get where I'm at now. So, you
Hmm.
know, I wish I could have provided you with more information.
Right. Well,
So
no,
it
I
goes
think I
like that.
definitely learned from that though,
Yeah.
because I know that I talk to my kids. My kids are young, and I talk to them now about relationships.
Well,
And
you do your best. You do your best. And it takes Brother Doctor to bring up a question like that.
But let me ask one more the
no, I
opposite
like
now.
that. I
Let me
like
ask
that.
you one
Okay.
on the opposite. Now,
Okay.
have your dad told you about something and you ignored his advice, then come to find out later, say, damn, he was right. I should have done that.
I'm trying to think. Um,
That's a tough one, Doctor.
that is a tough one because I'm trying to think. I don't think it was any specific advice that he gave me, but I think as often as adults do, when you get older, you just understand better where your parents are coming from when they limited you to so many things. I remember I got the worst whooping of my life was my dad told me I couldn't ride around the corner when I was at my grandmother's house. He said, "No, you can ride up and down the street. Don't go around the corner and all that." And I said, "Well," I said, "he don't know what I'm doing at my grandmother's house. I could do what I want to do over here." And he came and popped up and visited me and my sister at my maternal grandmother's house, and they didn't know where I was. I was riding my bike all through the neighborhood, and I was really up. That was the only time I think I was uh like blatantly upset with my dad as a child because I got a whooping for riding that bike. But now as I get older, now that I'm older, you just see things differently. And I know it was about being protected. He wanted me to be safe. So I don't think that it's any advice that he gave me like like anything like really deep, but I just think that I understand my parents, both of them, now that I am a parent and now that I'm older, and I understand why they were, because I think disciplinary wise, both of my parents were a little harsh, but I understand now where they were coming from, because a lot of, and then you look at yourself, like you said, self-reflection, and then you look at, sometimes you look at your peers and you see different things and you're like, wow, I would never do that, I would never say that. And I attribute that to my upbringing, because my parents just instilled in me a certain amount of self-respect and pride, to where it's just certain things that I'm not going to do and I'm not going to say.
Okay. So this is what I wanted to kind of clear up. we Brother Mashinda, we speak of love. Let's be a little bit specific on what love. Let's define love. What is love? Because love is pretty subjected to emotion. But what really is love, Brother Mashinda? Your definition of love.
Well, good question. And again, love. I don't have a dictionary with me. I'm sure it'll say in the Webster's dictionary, it'll say something about it's an emotion and all that kind of stuff. But generally, um, how I would define that, I guess, in my own words, is it's laced with other words like respect. Having respect for each other. Having, although, like, if that's your child, you still got to respect them. They have to respect you. Uh, Showing concern. Concern, like their whereabouts that I talked about. Um, Being, um, you know, giving. Give. Helping them all you can, being available to help them whenever they need you, that kind of thing. We're not always accessible sometimes, and but at the end of the day, um, just being a doer, a giver, that type of thing, being accessible for, if they need you for anything. And again, we can't save the world, no, and that type of thing, but just doing the best you can, and communicating, being able to communicate where it's not, it doesn't come across in a threatening manner either,
Yeah.
because I truly believe that there's a way to communicate without threatening. I'm helping raise my nephew. He's 14 now, been with me all his life. He's been in my house. He was in my household for maybe 4 years, but he's back with his mom. But he still, he thinks he knows I'm not his dad, but still, I'm like his dad, and he listens to me. And my wife, on the other hand, she's like tough on him. She comes at another angle. So I'm like a balance in the situation, and that's my, and again, not a right or wrong. She has her motive and her strategy, so I don't, and I might tell her, hey, ease up on him, but I won't say it in front of him, but the thing is, all I'm saying is, striving for a positive outcome, you know, and I think love can do that. Of course, there's love, different kinds of love, but love is just all of the above, long as, just being there. And, so I think, that's my little layman's term of love.
Okay, yeah, I think if anybody is interested, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. has a good definition of love, or he breaks love down into three different types of dimensions, and so it could, love it has many different characteristics. It could be emotional, it could be, expressive through the terms you were mentioning, Brother Mashinda. You know, love is love is all encompassing of what's good and what's beneficial for the people that's involved. So yes, a lot of people when they think of love, they be thinking about this emotional thing. So I just wanted to kind of, break it down a little bit deeper than just an emotional thing.
Yeah, love is an action word, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's an adjective. It could be an adjective, right, or a verb. Yeah, verb. Yeah.
But I like what Lashinda was saying, because like you said, a lot of people associate love with a feeling, but in my opinion, it's about the actions that show if you really love and care about someone.
Yeah, care is a good word for it. Yeah. Okay. Well,
I
I'm
want to
a
say something else,
go ahead.
because um yeah, Sean had brought up something that I think is important for us to consider, with saying that parents, a lot of children with their parents, they just maybe didn't have a good relationship with them. I think it's important for um um daddy, for your generation to know that um like your motto is each one teach one, you can even be a mentor to somebody my age, or even, of course, your students, but maybe someone that don't really have that foundation with their parent. You can still mentor. I want for everyone to have a mentor, even if it can't be from their parents.
Okay,
Like, we got to make
this
sure that
it's
that
kind of
God is giving them.
I would say that it's ironic that you brought that up. At the
Mhm.
present time, I am developing a mentorship program for the website,
Okay,
and
great.
I actually have one person. I have a peer mentor that's mentoring an 18-year-old. So
Okay.
your sister is mentoring an 18-year-old, and she's 19. So that's a peer mentor. So we do have a program that's being developed as we speak. And yes, matter of fact, I'm looking for mentees right now to help with the development of the program.
Okay.
So if anybody know of anybody that wants to be mentored, or this mentorship program is basically models after the website. The mentor and the mentee will be learning from each other in the process of the program. So yes, that's something you brought that up. But I'm developing a program as we speak. Your mic is off.
Yeah, I got kicked out of the session for a minute. Well, that's great, because I have a lot of friends that didn't have great relationship with their parents and even their grandparents, and I think that there are common trends between these friends that don't have closeness with their parents, and so I can conclude that it's because of them not having someone to give them wisdom that they have these different character traits. So
So
I'll definitely share
yeah,
on
let
my
them
social
know
media.
that I'm looking for people to mentor, and they would be helping me to develop this program, and then also in the process they can become mentors.
Okay.
So
That's
yeah, okay, well, it's getting beyond the time,
mm-hmm.
and I want to thank everyone for coming. I want to thank Janae for hosting this evening. We could do more of this, and I appreciate everybody and their time. And next week we have Brother Umar Hakim. He's an entrepreneur, very interesting person that I grew up with. Matter of fact, he grew up around the corner from us. I think Yashan may know him. So hopefully you guys come back next week and enjoy him. It's the interview. It's going to be different than these past shows, where he's just going to be interviewed and then he's going to be asked questions at the end. So it'll be a little different. But like the motto goes, each one teach one, folks.
Mm-hmm.
And I can say have a good evening.
All
Okay,
right. Thank
bye.
you so much.
Thank you.
Peace.
All right, man.
Take care.